Coming up next.
You know, curiosity about sex is normal, but pornography is not, right? So there needs to be a separation there. It's like my running joke is like porn is like fast food. It'll give you
Mm-hmm.
like that illusion of nutrition, but
Right?
it's not giving you anything sustainable.
Welcome to Faith Over Addiction podcast, where the chains of fixing and striving are broken and joy is rediscovered in Christ. You are here because you know there's more for you, a life beyond addiction's chaos, rooted in God's peace and promises. This is the place where Christian women like you learn to release the weight of fixing and striving and instead lean into God's strength to create a home filled with love, grace, and hope. She is clothed with strength and dignity. Proverbs 31:25. That's you. You may not feel like it yet, but you are stronger than you know. And God has so much more for you than carrying someone else's addiction. Here, we'll uncover how to set healthy boundaries with love and a little humor. Find resilience and grace in the messy moments of life. Celebrate small victories and embrace joy like never before. Lean into God's promises for restoration and strength because He's not done with your story or your loved ones. This is your invitation to rise up, embrace your worth in God's kingdom, and take back what's been stolen by addiction: your peace, your joy, your future. Your faith is the foundation, and your boundaries are the bridge, and God's truth is your guide. I'm Tanya Gioia, your host and fellow traveler on this journey through the chaos of addiction. I'm here to cheer you on, equip you with tools that work, and share the truth that's changed my life. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Together, we'll uncover how to create safe, loving space for healing, starting with your own heart and home. By setting boundaries, trusting God's plan, and embracing His truth, you can reclaim your joy, your peace, and your family's future. Then you will be able to stand firm for your family and legacy as a kingdom daughter, a woman who can laugh at the days to come, knowing her identity is secure in Christ. So grab a cup of coffee or tea and get comfortable. Let's walk this journey together. We're about to take back what's been stolen, create a safe, healing space for you and your family, and rediscover the joy God has waiting for you.
Welcome to the Faith Over Addiction podcast. I have the great honor to be here with Christopher Rogers, and he is doing some amazing stuff. I don't want to spoil it because we've got to get into his background to understand why he has come to this experience, but he is working in the area of addiction, especially with teens and with literacy. So Chris, take it away. Give us some more information about where you come from and what you're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely, Tanya. Thank you so much for having me. So, yeah, my name is Chris Rogers. I am from New York, born and raised. And as far as who I am and where I come from in 2 minutes or less, as far as what I do professionally today, I work within the addiction recovery field. And yeah, it's true. I specialize in helping young people make healthy and mindful decisions. And the sect of compulsive behaviors that I work with, it has a lot of stigma attached to it, a lot of, discomfort, some question marks. Might seem a little awkward to some people, and some of you are probably ahead of me. But the world of addiction that I come from is the addiction to pornography. And let's just call it what it is. There absolutely is a stigma attached to it for one reason or another. Certain topics are kind of swept under the rug, but that's exactly how stigmas kind of persist, right? And it's really, really important to me for many reasons, not the least of which is it's, a world that I have personal experience with. And to make a very long story short, you name the thing, I've done the thing, But I ended up finding a program that absolutely kind of shattered my reality in the best way. And through the things that I've learned in terms of self-awareness, in terms of choosing community over isolation, and certain techniques and tools that have helped me kind of process things and, kind of snap me out of a jam in the heat of the moment. As I like to say, it's funny, I was literally just talking to my girlfriend yesterday about this, talking about our past and our history and things like that. It ended up through the things that I was able to let go of and learn, made more room for the Holy Spirit. And I'm sure we'll dive into that a little bit later. But as far as what I do today, I have a program that has really been my baby. I call it the Rebooted Teen Program. And it's essentially the program that I was introduced to, but modified and catered to a younger demographic. And real quick, the reason why it matters so much to me and why I have a heart for this particular generation, before I was working as a coach full time, I was actually working as a music teacher for a long time in New York City. And, I taught in the middle of the pandemic and everything was on fire and we were doing school online. And I noticed like a big, big shift in demeanor and attitude and energy and a quality of the light in the eyes. And not to be over the top, but I saw it in my students. And it really made me think, like, gosh, like, what were we teaching at the time? Here is everything on a screen that you could probably ever want or need. Here's where school's gonna be. Here's where your entertainment's gonna be. Here's where your family's gonna be. Here's all the information you could ever want or need. It's all kind of a one-stop shop. So we're talking about a community of people that are more stimulated than ever and more anxious than ever. And it's no wonder, I mean, given the accessibility of devices, I mean, we don't call them the iPad generation for nothing, where in an age where we're kind of using iPads almost like pacifiers. It's really, really vital to have these types of otherwise awkward conversations sooner as opposed to later. And the Rebooted Teen program is about, generating those skills that'll not only benefit them when it comes to their relationship with a behavior that's proven to be unhealthy, but for the rest of their life. That's really my heart. And just to, kind of demonstrate who I am, where I come from, and to equip parents and guardians, I also have a side program called the Rebooted Teen Parent Program. So if anyone is out there listening and this sounds like your son or a young person that and I don't really know how to open up these types of conversations, I don't want to make him feel awkward or I don't want to shame him or make him feel uncomfortable, then the Rebooted Teen Parent Program is for you. It really kind of breaks down what to expect, what's going on today in 2026 as opposed to 1996 or 2006. It's a different world in many regards, but we talk about it, we take the stuff under the rug and, we put it where it belongs in the garbage. But we need to acknowledge it first without shame, without judgment, and understanding that any compulsive behavior, the root of addiction, right? It's not the thing necessarily, but the place from which it's coming from. When you make the heart the target, that's how you increase the likelihood of healing, right? So that's a little bit of, what I do and why I do it.
Fantastic. So when we're looking at this is a process addiction and it gets hooked by doing the process over and over. What brings kids to this to start with, and what ages are we looking at? And I do want to mention the rise for young girls and women is increasing because of accessibility. We never want to talk about women in this situation, but it is happening. Upwards of 30% of the users are women. So we can't just label, oh, boys will be boys. That's not what's happening anymore. I just want to bring that one out. But ages, how they get hooked, what are you seeing in your experience?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, it's not just the boys club. It is as far as what is new now compared to maybe 20 years ago, even compared to 10 years ago. Yes, the level of accessibility, just the availability of devices, on hand, I mean, really, even before we get into the pornographic aspect, I mean, when we're learning to become, just as literate with, a handheld device before we're able to like speak and walk on our own, it will affect the brain in many ways, and I can nerd out. But as far as, what I notice as, as a porn addiction recovery coach, yeah, I mean, the most recent study I found is that the average age that a young person will be exposed is as young as about 8 years old.
Mm.
As far as like accidental, like what is this? Not on purpose, but we're talking about, what is on your child's device. It's more than just Minecraft. It's Snapchat, it's Instagram, it's TikTok, it's YouTube, where, body parts, innuendos, or just like ads for something pornographic are just not hidden in plain sight. So
Mhm.
it truly is, as far as the level of accessibility, deeper than we might consider. But even, I have a heart for what you said because I just shared a video on Instagram as far as like, how young, impressionable women, kind of find their way into, becoming hooked themselves. When we see, the impact of pornography on our young men, it almost seems as if like becoming involved in something like, taking pictures of yourself and videos of yourself and selling them online, it's sort of the ultimate if you can't beat them, join them kind of attempt. Like it's deep, it's a soul thing. And that's why, when it comes to the things that we talk about on the Rebooted Teen program, yeah, we talk about filters, we talk about blockers, we talk about, some practical steps to kind of make sure your devices are as safe as possible. But really, the best filter that you're ever going to have is going to be yourself. Like at the end of the day, we don't want to grow a dependency on, the training wheels, right? We don't want to grow
Right.
a dependency on, mom or dad to tell us or to keep everything safe. We're talking about self-advocacy in the sense of what do I want? What is important to me? What do I value? And what is going to help get me there? What's going to hinder me from reaching that thing? So that's where I come from when it comes to it's more than just the behavior, it's the place from which it's coming from. But as far as what I notice, as far as trends go, it really is that. It's becoming, we talked about accessibility, but the influence, I mean, it's just simply everywhere. There really is no hiding it. Back in the day,
Mhm.
what started off as, you go to a convenience store and you buy a magazine, or once the internet started to boom, like there was a way to access pornography there. But now it's become so embedded in the cultural zeitgeist that it's you know, we're getting to an age now where, in the age of AI, to the untrained eye, like, or even to the trained eye, it's becoming more difficult to decipher what's true and what isn't, what's real and
Mhm.
what's fabricated. So even those that have, kind of been around since like the dawn of the internet, like I'm technically a millennial, like I remember how big of a deal it was setting up my first MySpace account. You know,
Right.
it's
Right.
different world. So I know I'm on a bit of a ramble here, but it only calls to mind, from my perspective, why it's so important for adults, parents, guardians to sit their children down and have some understandably, maybe a little awkward conversations about internet literacy, about internet safety, about, the sex talk, about, what pornography is and what it isn't. And
Mm.
that's my heart as far as why the programs I've made exist to educate, to embolden, and to encourage.
When you look at it, the narrative of what the world is to, I say this, the world will raise your children if you don't,
Well,
right? So the narrative that the world is telling you is boys will be boys, this is okay, this is acceptable. I mean, even watching TV compared to 20, 30 years ago, we were watching the Super Bowl and now there's gaming commercials on the Super Bowl. I'd never seen that before. Maybe it's been there for 4 or 5 years, but never seen that before. Um, when you're looking at this, what in the pornography world is actually hooking the child? Why are they returning and returning? What are they getting from it? Because a lot of us, and you can say this about any addiction, we will look at somebody who has the addiction and say, this is really hurting you. What are you getting from it?
Right. Because otherwise, why would you keep on going back, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know?
It's funny because one of the first exercises that I would have my clients do is something that I like to call the thank you and goodbye letter. So what you do is you write a letter to pornography, which might sound a little silly, but when you really break it down, the letter comes in two parts. There's a thank you portion. So literally for like thank you for making me feel excited. Thank you for making me feel like I wasn't alone or weird because I was experiencing like new feelings as I was coming of age. You know what I mean? I didn't know what was going on. I had these internal questions and you gave me the answers. So thank you. That's the first part of the letter. And then the second part is the goodbye part where it's like, despite what you've taught me, I need to move on and change my lifestyle because, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's really it. I mean, like, particularly, well, maybe particularly is a strong word, but it is a trend that I notice as far as, conversations we would have in the church community when it does come to sex, when it does come to pornography. The truth of the matter is we can only pretend or at least act like certain things don't exist for so long, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you kind of take the mysteriousness away. You kind of show the man behind the curtain. It's, there's there's this comedian's bit that is just coming to my mind. A lot of his stuff is just kind of like, kind of like locker room humor, whatever you want to call it. But he had this one really interesting bit. Basically, he was talking about how he's never drank alcohol before. He just never did. And it wasn't because he quote unquote had a problem. It was just like he just never did it. And a lot of his friends that talked to him was like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like why? It's just so part of the culture. Why not? So literally, he tells a story about how his parents, literally, they, as many parents do, they had like a liquor cabinet, and they were like, all right, this is what alcohol is. This is how it affects you. We'd rather you not do it because you're young, but then again, we can't stop you. But then he's just sitting there like, I mean, okay. I mean, give me rules so I can be naughty, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the moral of the story is, the more you sort of dispel any myths, the more you sort of just are matter of fact and straight up. Like I think we've outgrown like the story of like the birds and the bees or the stork,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I think we're past that. It's just like your body parts have a name, right? It's just like
Mm-hmm.
this is what goes on, and if you're going to use this device, here are some things to expect, right?
Mm-hmm.
So really, one of the first major steps, and these are things that we talk about in the rebooted teen parent program, transparency is key.
Mm.
Curiosity about sex is normal, but pornography is not, right? So there needs to be a separation there. It's like my running joke is like porn is like fast food. It'll give you
Mm-hmm.
like that illusion of nutrition, but
Right.
it's not giving you anything sustainable. You know what I'm saying? So really making that distinction again, earlier as opposed to later, in the way things are with the earlier and earlier age of exposure, conversation is key.
And you've walked into the door that really is my probably standing point is God gave us sex
Mhm.
on purpose. It is a divine experience, and it's probably one of the places where we get the closest to the revelation of what the connection with God could be like.
Wow.
So it's a gift. What we have done with pornography is taken that gift and turned it inside out. Can you talk a little bit more about the control, the power, um, the absolute opposite of selflessness that pornography is?
Yeah, it puts, pleasure on his throne, right? And there is, my gosh, how much time do we have? So much to say. But just to really, really put it in layman's terms, right? It, I love how you said how sex, like, yeah, it's a part of life, but when done in its proper context, as far as our earthly experience goes, like it seems to be darn near the closest we have to like what connection with him is like. And when it comes to what's portrayed in pornography, it gets distilled and distorted and I mean, when it comes to being promiscuous, when it comes to, my behaviors, what started off as like innocent curiosity, like what is this that I'm seeing on this screen, ended up becoming behaviors that became more risky. And, you know, I thought that like, again, this is just what you do.
Mm.
And when you're in your 20s, whatever, like this is just what people do. So you just kind of follow suit, and perhaps out of that place of FOMO and ego, like I don't want to be, ostracized or thought of as othered in a way, like, you're not seeing people, or, the term dating, means something different now. It's very self-seeking, it's very self-serving. You kind of walk around with this uh, checklist in your head. And when it comes to objectification, truly, it's like, how can I use this person to gratify myself? How can I use just how this person looks to escape for a while? It's not even about the person at all. It's about you.
Mm-hmm.
It's about yourself. And the thing about the relationship with pornography, it is a selfish relationship all in itself. Because what gives the illusion of intimacy, especially to a young, impressionable brain, especially if they haven't had a real sexual experience before, if this is their only exposure to it, because children have questions, and whether we like it or not, porn will provide answers. They are distorted and distilled and off the mark, but they're answers nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the culture of immediacy goes, they're going to receive those answers very quickly. But once you develop that unhealthy relationship, again, it is very self-seeking. I can show up and not have to do anything. I get what I want when I want it. And that absolutely, and I can speak from personal experience, and I see it in the people that I talk to, it absolutely affects us when we find ourselves in an actual relationship. There's a constant game of comparison. There's a constant game of, is the grass greener on the other side? I mean, it's more so an addiction to novelty, right? Like it's an
Mm-hmm.
addiction to that revolving door. I mean, there was this experiment done that you may have heard of called the Coolidge effect. Are you familiar with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so real quick for those who may not, there was this experiment done with lab rats. So basically, there was a rat in a cage, a male one and a female one, and they would mate, but after a while, the male would essentially get bored of the female rat. So
Right.
it's like, all right, I've already mated with them. Then that rat was replaced with a new female rat. Now, because of the newness, all of a sudden interest was piqued again. And then same exact story. Okay, I'm kind of losing interest. The female rat was replaced with a new one, and interest peaked again. This is why pornography affects us so much. It's that revolving door. It's that never-ending carousel ride of novelty, the newness. What have I not seen yet? What have I not been exposed to yet? And that can lead somebody down a rabbit hole of, because of the, okay, I mean, this is where the addiction comes into play. Our tolerance increases. So that leads us
Mm-hmm.
toward more extreme things, into more controversial things. Like we need to increase that kick. We need to kind of like meet our new ceiling of tolerance. So again, what really starts off as innocent curiosity becomes a self-centered relationship with the illusion of intimacy, rather than going through the trials and sometimes trouble of an actual intimate relationship with somebody. And it involves more than just your body.
Thank you for illuminating all this. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole. We'll have to do another show on this.
Let's do it.
New, novel, or exciting is what the ADHD brain craves all the time. If
Yeah.
it's not new, novel, or exciting, the brain goes to sleep. or it goes and it finds new, novel, and exciting. So addiction fits perfectly with the ADHD brain, because if you can keep leveling up the addiction, then it fits there. I'd drawn it with substance use disorder, but I hadn't quite drawn it together with this. The other thing that I would like you to speak a little bit more to is the difference. You talked about a little bit of this fast food. We think this is intimacy, but this is not biblical intimacy. And if you delve into deeper Jewish customs, it's certainly not how marriage is designed, because they would have when the woman was menstruating, they would have a full stop because they didn't feel that was okay to continue with sexual intercourse at that point. So you'd have 5 days, 10 days out of the month where there was nothing, and you had to develop other ways of being intimate with your spouse. So talk a little bit more about this. We've come into this is what intimacy is, just like Hollywood movies show the beginning of the relationship, but very seldom do they show the working out and the depth that can come from true intimacy.
Mhm. Sex and intimacy may be interrelated, but they are not mutually exclusive. And if you are somebody who develops an unhealthy relationship with something like pornography, the line between those two terms becomes blurred. And
Great way to put it. It does become blurred, doesn't it?
yes, absolutely. And these are things that we talk about. I talk about with my adult clients, but also, for my teen clients that, might have been like sexually active, and we kind of like talk about it. It's like, where did these sort of expectations come from? We kind of take a moment to push the pause button and kind of question our own decision making. Like take a step back for just a second, breathe, and just kind of analyze what's going on, almost see it from like a third person point of view. And it really just comes down to, like, I asked to have clients define the word intimacy. What is the word intimacy, just from what you already know? Oh, it means, like closeness with somebody. Okay, cool. It's a good start. What about you? It means, like sharing your feelings with somebody, or kind of feeling safe or not feeling judged, whatever. They'll kind of go on. And I'm like, this is really interesting, guys. And I notice none of your definitions including sex. And that's the point, right? So again, in its proper context and its proper purpose, it's like, yes, like sex and intimacy, maybe, and this is sort of like one of my spiels, like sex and intimacy might be interrelated, but they're not synonyms. They're not exactly the same, they're, you know what I mean? They're not interrelated, or they're not mutually exclusive. So really being able to make that distinction with someone who's willing to go there is a really, really powerful exercise. And it makes them not only make more informed decisions, but make them more values-based decisions, like really making decisions based on their values and foundation as opposed to their impulses, you know? Because if what they crave is intimacy, there's a strategy to go about pursuing that as opposed to just pursuing sex, thinking that it's intimacy, you know?
Well, and that's where our language is. Have you been intimate? Our language is there. How, I can imagine you sitting in this group and blowing your mind and asking them, have you had sex and it hasn't been intimate?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you look at pornography, what's the pain? What's the loneliness? What are they trying to fill with a falseness?
Right.
So I want to switch gears a little bit. What did you do? Where did God bring you to bring you out of this? Because it's perfectly acceptable in society. You're an adult. You can purchase. You can be wherever you want to be. Nobody's going to fire you for this experience. That type of stuff. So, what brought you here?
So it's funny because I remember being so freaked out when the prospect came to start coaching full time. Uh, and again, working as a teacher for a long time. It was safer. It was more predictable and this, that, and the third. But I knew in my heart of hearts, shout out to Shakespeare, my gosh, shout out to Shakespeare. I really knew that this is where my heart was. Not only because I've been there myself, but I see it in my students, you know?
Mhm.
And as far as, what really kind of pushed me over the edge, or let me even rewind the tape for a moment. When I was really starting to take my own recovery process seriously, it was around the same time that I started coming back to church. It
Mhm.
just so happened to work that way. Funny, right? And, just a little context, like I grew up in church, like, my home church, it's like I was baptized in, I was confirmed in, I've done it all, right? Youth group, mission trips, retreats, convocations, like I'm a worship leader, like I've been very visible and very involved, right? But behind closed doors, I was acting out. And
Mhm.
there was a season there where, I stopped showing up. Like I stopped coming and was kind of going through some stuff. And through my process of kind of figuring things out and leaning on my own understanding, if you will, like I was, again, sort of coping in this way that had proven time and time again to be unhealthy for me. So fast forwarding to when I actually decided to, A, come to grips with the fact that this ain't working.
Mhm.
Like there is a misalignment between how I've been built and how I've been acting. It's like
Mhm.
no wonder why there's this immense sense of anxiety. Like there's no wonder. I
Mhm.
mean, like the anxiousness is a symptom of something deeper. It's a soul that's screaming, for
Mhm.
groundedness and safety and not to be corny, but like a hug.
Well, and let me pause you there. Could you could you at one point find the groundedness and safety in pornography? Did it feel like it was there? Because we don't use anything if it doesn't work.
That's a great question. Yeah. I mean, yeah, but it goes back to that fast food thing where, I mean, the way fast food is made is that it leaves you kind of like wanting more and coming back.
Mhm.
There's the difference in my mind between happiness and joy.
Mm.
Now, it's like, it don't take a lot to make me happy. You know, like happiness is, the kick I get from, a cup of coffee,
Mhm.
like caffeine, like happiness is kind of like sugar or caffeine in that like it's the spark is easy to create, but there's always like you wanting more, right? It's like I have like a theory of like where it's like
Do tell.
here it is. So my tinfoil hat
There
theory,
we go.
where basically it's like our founding documents, it's we're entitled to the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And I
Mhm.
have this idea where it's like it makes me believe that word was used on purpose, because
Mhm.
pursuing happiness instead of pursuing joy, because when you're pursuing happiness you'll get it, but then you'll always be wanting more. You got to buy something. You need to do something. Something's not enough for you
Mhm.
to always be craving it. Everyone
Mhm.
wants to be happy. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I need to
Mhm.
chase it. I need to pursue it. Whereas joy, that's innate. If
Mm.
if I've been born with, not with a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and sound mind, it seems as if culture is doing its darndest to help me forget that.
Mm.
And I
Mhm.
think that pornography for me was it just the way I'm built. It was the main way the enemy had to, kind of erase that truth from my consciousness, right? So really coming back to basics, like really coming back to who I am, in that I'm more than what I feel.
Mm.
I'm more than the thoughts that I think.
Mhm.
And accepting the fact that I was built for more than living off of my impulses. I'm not on this planet for just me. I don't need to pursue intimacy with something physical involved. This is gonna sound a little strange, but when you see a lot of this content that's out there, some people call certain parts of the internet like the manosphere. Have you heard of this?
No, I haven't heard of that one. That's new.
All right. Well, long story short, there are a lot of like big names out there, and some had really gotten in trouble for doing shady things behind the scenes. In my case, not very surprising, but the primary thing is this: like the main thing is like get women, get money, and if you're not a man. You're less than. You're missing out. You're not doing life right. You're sort of measured by your material uh success, and that's the mark of your worth,
Mm-hmm.
and it's widespread. People
Mm.
believe that, and when you add like a pornographic element to it, it's just like this is how you celebrate, this is how you yeah, I mean, these are the
Relieve anxiety, manage your
expectations.
emotions, all those things. I'm just guessing.
No, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, it's like kind of like these are the breaks, right? So, but with all of that said, as far as to finally answer your question, like what did God do to bring me back? And truly, what inspired me to take the things that I've learned and share them with others? He gave me a heart to teach.
Mm.
He gave me a heart that's vulnerable. I learned how to live in seclusion. I learned how to get by in isolation, perhaps due to shame, perhaps
Mm.
due to not wanting to lose what I had garnered material wise. Because it's like, oh, Chris is struggling with this particular thing. I'm going to think of him less, or I'm going to respect him less, or you're weird, like porn. Like, what are you talking about, And I lived a lot of my life that way, just kind of I use the phrase hidden in plain sight, but it's like I was in the room, but I wasn't really in the room. Because if
Mhm.
I was fully present and saying what was actually going on, there was a fear of rejection. There was a fear of judgment, you know?
Mhm.
And I didn't know if I could reconcile that. I didn't know if I could deal with that. So that's what kind of like kept me hidden. So through the work that I've done, through a lot of forgiveness, both of myself, both of, certain ways in which I was raised, and a lot of letting go of things and learning different tools, tips, and techniques to, yes, get me out of a jam, but really get hip to who I am. It's like my vulnerability is a superpower.
Mm.
One of the biggest things I learned is the more personal something feels, the more universal it actually is. As soon as I say
Mhm.
the real thing, it's just so happens to be the thing that resonates the most. And I think, especially in this day and age, we're talking about a generation that is craving authenticity.
Yes,
Like
absolutely.
I had this example of when I was working as a music teacher. Like I used to ask my music students all the time. Let's say like I used to direct the musicals and stuff, and let's say someone's having trouble with a song or something. Oh, I don't want to sound bad. I don't want my voice to crack or whatever. And I asked them, okay, you ever see a TV show like American Idol or The Voice or America's Got Talent, whatever? And they're like, yeah. I was like, okay, cool. You ever see somebody on stage and they're singing a song and all of a sudden they just start crying? They just start getting wrapped up in the song, and and for all intents and purposes, they're not sounding very good.
Hmm.
Their voice is strained because they're so emotional. Maybe they're forgetting their words, and maybe their voice is cracking, whatever. But is anybody in the audience going like this? Boo! They're all kind of
Yeah.
like this. Why? People would rather see something real than something perfect. You are made in the image of God. You are made to not, I mean, it's such a cliche, so I apologize ahead of time, but not just survive, but to thrive, you know?
Right.
And speaking it is not the salvation itself, but it is a step in that direction. Holy moly. So, what I want to do with all that said is to, stop me when I start getting passionate. But really, what I want to do is provide that space, if you will, or that platform to begin that process. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's my effort when it comes to the Rebooted Teen program. It's like, again, yes, we're going to talk about some tips, tools, and techniques, like things to watch out for, and talk about values, and talk about what is it that you want. Because as a coach, I can't tell you what's important to you. All I can do is facilitate as best I can, the road from where you are to where you want to be. But you have to be very, very honest, and you have to be very, very willing to speak, and I think that there's a lot of fear around that because of, maybe influence of social media or the influence of, yeah, I mean, I remember the peer pressure in the high school cafeteria. You take that kind of peer pressure and multiply it by about a million. This is what this generation is dealing with. And I think that in the age of fake news and AI and, right and left and who's right and who's wrong, what's true and what's not, authenticity in this day and age, I believe, is medicinal. And I think beyond, just help with a particular behavior, I think they need permission to express themselves in a healthy, secure, non-judgmental space. Not let's do whatever we want. It's just like we're here for an intention. We're here to accomplish a mission. But understand that you're not far gone. You're not without hope. It's whatever you see on a screen. It's you have your own brain, your own heart, and it's been uniquely, perfectly, fearfully, wonderfully made. And
Mhm.
being able to hear that and feel that and accept that is, I believe, something that, the hearts of this generation are parched and yearning
Yes. Yes.
for. So I know I said a whole bunch, but it's
No, it was
so important
beautiful.
to me.
So as we begin to wrap this up, for the woman that's sitting on the couch going, I really need to do something, but I don't know what, to have this conversation with my kids, to maybe talk to my adult child who's struggling. And you've brought it up continuously as the theme that we talk about all the time of shame. I'm sure there's two sides of me. It's like a dark and a light. I'm showing up at church, but I'm managing my emotions over here with whatever numbing out addiction I'm using. How can I be this person? And then they just drop out. That's the
Yeah.
last thing that mom wants, right? So how does she open this with love, with caring? Give us just one thing and then point us to your .com.
Sure. Well, what I tend to say is this: if you lead with shame, they will stay the same. You know,
Fair.
this isn't how I raised you. How could you watch this filth? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, with all the love in the world, this is what I received. And a lot of the clients that I speak to, it's a very common tale. Now, while the intentions might be good, what we're going to work on is the execution. You can
Mm-hmm.
still have the same heart of obviously wanting the best for your child and wanting them to talk to you rather, about their problems, their feelings, what's going on. But again, with that essence of shame, there creates like this hide and lie dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, mom says this is bad, but this makes me feel good, so therefore I must be bad. So I'm learning to not talk about this particular part of my life with her. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of what we talk about in the Rebooted Teen Parent Program, which is free, by the way, like
Mm-hmm.
literally all someone has to do, if any of this is resonating, go to rebootedteen.com and enroll in the free course, where we talk about like ways to engage with your child in a way that, again, doesn't make the behavior the star of the show, because if I can encourage you to take at least something away from this conversation, it's not just the thing, it's the place from which it's coming from. The most important piece in this puzzle is your child.
Mm.
It's not me versus you, you rebellious child. You're not doing what I said. It's both of you together versus the problem. And that's what the Rebooted Teen Parent Program is all about. So the .com, again, is rebootedteen.com. There's the free course where we walk through it all. There's a Facebook community where we trade notes and hold each other accountable and check in. But if you feel it's the right move, after checking out the free course, just to show who I am, so you're not having your child talk to a complete stranger, I share a bit of my testimony in there. But if you feel that it's the right move, then let's talk about the Rebooted Teen program. But I would highly recommend check out the free course. You can check out some samples at Rebooted Teen on Instagram and YouTube. But beyond that, that's where to find it.
Awesome. Chris, it has been such a pleasure to have you here with all your experience and your experience with teens. What a fantastic gift you are offering to parents. And having the sex conversation is hard enough at 9, 10, those types of things. Having this one that really does not fit with a Christian home lifestyle. Yep. You're going to give us words so we don't trip over our own tongue and give us the opportunity to process it. I would really encourage parents, whether your child is struggling or not, you need this information, because they will, unfortunately, almost all of them will bump into it, no matter how cloistered or homeschooled or whatever. It shows up. It just shows up. Yeah. So Chris, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate you being here. Give us the .com one more time, because I know when I'm listening, sometimes I don't have pencil and paper.
Yeah, absolutely. So the .com that you can find is rebootedteen.com.
Fantastic. All right, Chris, thank you again.
This was awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Faith Over Addiction podcast. Remember, nothing changes until something changes. Today is your day to step out in faith and make a difference. You are a daughter of the King, a woman who can spark incredible ripple effects of hope and healing, not just in your own life, but in your family, your community, and God's kingdom. If this episode encouraged you, bless someone else by sharing it. Send it to a friend who needs a little hope, or post it on Instagram and tag me. I'd love to hear what resonated most with you. And hey, if you're ready to reclaim your God-given identity and create a safe, loving space for yourself and those you care about, let's talk. Book a quick call with me today, and I'd love to hear your story and help you take the next step. Oh, and don't forget to head over to Apple Podcasts, search for Faith Over Addiction, and leave me a review. Your feedback not only makes my day, but helps other women find this podcast and step into freedom too. You are strong, you are loved, and the joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Until next time, keep walking boldly into the life God has for you.